The news spread fast. Within 2 days, every human in the galaxy knew about New Haven. They knew about Karen Walsh and her final stand. They knew about Andrew Blake and his 3 destroyers. They knew about the civilians who had been saved and the warriors who had died to save them. Vecthar expected the humans to ask for help from the Galactic Council. That was what young races did when attacked by someone stronger. They sought protection from the older, more powerful civilizations. They made deals and compromises. They survived by being smart, not strong. The humans did not ask for help. Instead, their government issued a statement that was only 2 sentences long. We offered peace. They chose war. Now they will learn what that means. The Galactic Council panicked. They sent diplomats to Earth, the human homeworld. They offered to mediate. They promised to talk to the Krath. They suggested treaties and compromises. Surely the humans did not want a full war with the Krath Dominion. Surely they understood they would lose. The human representative listened politely to all the offers. Then she said something that shocked everyone in the council chamber. We appreciate your concern, but this is not your war. The Krath attacked our civilians. They murdered our people without cause. We will handle this ourselves. But you cannot win, one diplomat said. The Krath have 3,000 warships. You have barely 200. This is suicide. The human representative smiled, but there was no warmth in it. Then we will make it the most expensive suicide in galactic history. Vecthar was assigned to document the human war effort. The Galactic Council wanted detailed records of what would surely be humanity's extinction. They would study these records to understand what mistakes the humans made. Future races could learn from human failures. Vecthar traveled to the human flagship, a vessel called Retribution. The name itself was disturbing. Most species named their ships after virtues or heroes. The humans named theirs after vengeance. The ship surprised him. It was not a purpose-built warship. It had been a colony transport just 3 weeks ago. Human engineers had stripped out the cargo holds and passenger quarters. They had installed weapons, shield generators, and armor plating. The work was rough and hurried but effective. Admiral Linda Hayes commanded the Retribution. She was 52 years old with gray hair and tired eyes. She had been a transport captain before the war. Now she commanded humanity's largest warship. When Vecthar met her, she was studying reports and drinking something called coffee. Commander Vecthar, she said, not looking up from her work. I am told you are here to document our defeat. I am here to observe and record, Vecthar said carefully. The Galactic Council wishes to understand human military doctrine. Our doctrine is simple, Hayes said. She finally looked at him. Her eyes were hard. The Krath hurt our people. We will hurt them back. We will keep hurting them until they stop, or until none of us are left to fight. That is not a strategy. That is emotion. Hayes smiled slightly. Yes, it is. And you know what, Commander? Emotion is what you have never seen in war. Your species, all the old species, you fight with logic. You calculate costs and benefits. You know when to surrender. That makes you predictable. She stood up and walked to a window showing space outside. We do not fight with logic. We fight with love. Vecthar did not understand. Love for those who died. Love for those who still live. Love for people we have never met but who share our home among the stars. Hayes turned back to him. You cannot calculate love, Commander. You cannot predict it, and you cannot defeat it. Vecthar met more of the crew over the following days. Greg Turner was Hayes' second in command. Before the war, he had been a school teacher. He taught history to children. Now he planned military operations. When Vecthar asked him how he made the transition, Turner just shrugged. I taught my students about old wars on Earth, Turner said. Wars where people fought not because they wanted to, but because they had to. Because evil needed to be stopped and nobody else would do it. I never thought I would live those lessons myself. You had a family? Vecthar asked. He had read Turner's file. Turner's face became hard. I had a wife and 2 daughters. They were on New Haven, visiting my wife's parents. They made it to an evacuation ship. But the Krath shot down 3 evacuation ships before Karen Walsh stopped them. My family was on one of those ships. I am sorry. Do not be sorry, Turner said quietly. Just watch what we do to the Krath. Watch and remember, so this never happens again. Paul Martinez was the chief tactician. He had been a freighter pilot, hauling cargo between human colonies. He had no military training at all. But he understood how ships moved through space better than anyone Hayes had ever met. He could predict where an enemy would go and put human ships in position to hit them. I hauled grain and machine parts for 15 years, Martinez told Vekthar. Boring work, safe work. I was happy. Then the Krath came. Now I haul death and I sleep well at night. The human fleet gathered at a staging point near the edge of human space. Vekthar counted the ships. 207 vessels. Most were military, but many were converted civilian craft. Cargo haulers with missile launchers welded to their sides. Passenger liners with armor plating. Even a few old mining ships equipped with ramming prows. Against them, the Krath had 3,000 warships. Ships designed for war, built in military shipyards, crewed by professional soldiers. The math was clear. Humanity would lose. But Hayes did not seem to care about math. She gathered her captains for a final briefing before the attack. Vekthar watched from the back of the room. 200 faces looked at their admiral, waiting for orders. Hayes stood at the front, calm and steady. "You all know the odds," she said. "You all know what we are facing. I will not lie to you. Many of us will die. Maybe all of us. But the Krath need to learn something. They need to understand that humans are not prey. We are not victims. And we do not forgive those who murder our children." The room was silent. Every eye was on Hayes. "In 5 hours we attack the Krath forward base in the Helix Nebula. We will hit them hard. We will hit them fast. And we will show them that every human life they took will cost them dearly." Hayes paused. "I know some of you are afraid. That is good. Fear means you understand what we face. But do not let fear stop you. Think of New Haven. Think of Karen Walsh. Think of everyone we have lost. And let your anger burn brighter than your fear." Someone in the crowd started clapping. Then another. Then everyone. The applause grew into a roar. These humans were about to fly into almost certain death, and they were cheering about it. Vekthar felt cold. This was not normal behavior. This was not logical. This was dangerous. Hayes raised her hand, and the room went quiet. "One more thing," she said. "Before we left Earth, I received a message from the Galactic Council. They wanted to remind us that the Krath are a recognized power. They suggested we should be careful about escalating the conflict. They were worried about the political implications." She pulled out a data pad and held it up. Then she dropped it on the floor and stepped on it, crushing it under her boot. "That is what I think about political implications. The Krath started this war when they killed civilians. We will end it. No matter what the Council thinks. No matter what anyone thinks. This is our war, and we will fight it our way." The humans cheered again, louder this time. Vekthar left the briefing room and returned to his observation ship. His hands were shaking. He sent a message to the Galactic Council. "The humans are about to attack the Krath base. I do not believe they can win, but I also do not believe they can be stopped. Something has awakened in them. Something old and fierce. I fear we have all made a mistake by underestimating them." The Council sent back a reply. "Continue observation. Document everything. Humanity will learn a hard lesson about the realities of war." Vekthar looked at that message for a long time. Then he deleted it. He had a feeling the lesson would go the other way. Commander Vekthar had seen war for 300 years. He was not human. He came from a race called the Zalarians, and his job was simple. He watched wars happen across the galaxy and wrote down what he saw. He studied how different alien races fought each other. He learned their patterns, their weapons, their strategies. After so many years, he believed he understood everything about war. War always followed rules, Vekthar thought. Species fought over land, resources, or ideas. They used their strengths and protected their weaknesses. He could predict who would win almost every time. He was right 97 times out of 100. War was like math to him. Put in the numbers. Get the answer. Then the humans arrived in the galaxy. They were new. They had only learned to travel faster than light 50 years ago. That was nothing compared to other races who had been exploring space for thousands of years. The humans seemed friendly enough. They wanted to trade and make friends. They brought strange things with them, art that made no sense, music that stirred emotions, books filled with stories about made-up people. Most aliens found humans interesting but weak. Their military was small. Their weapons were basic. Their ships were slow compared to the great powers of the galaxy. Nobody worried about them. They were just another young race trying to find their place among the stars. Vekthar watched them with mild interest. He added them to his files. Humans, diplomatic, creative, militarily insignificant. He did not think he would ever need to study them in battle. He was wrong. The Krath Dominion changed everything. The Krath were warriors. They had conquered 40 star systems by force. They took what they wanted and destroyed anyone who resisted. They were strong, organized, and brutal. Other races feared them, but the Galactic Council did nothing. The Krath were too powerful to fight without massive losses. When the Krath attacked the human colony of New Haven, nobody was surprised. The Krath wanted the planet for its minerals. The humans living there were just in the way. 300 Krath warships appeared in the system without warning. They did not ask the humans to leave. They did not offer terms. They just started shooting. New Haven had 12 small patrol boats protecting it. 12 against 300. Vecthar heard about the attack and immediately requested permission to observe. This would be educational. He wanted to see how quickly the humans would surrender. Most species gave up when facing impossible odds. It was logical. Why die when you could negotiate? Vecthar arrived in his observation ship just as the battle began. He positioned himself at a safe distance and watched his screens. The human commander was named Karen Walsh. She was young for a military leader, only 38 years old. Her ship was called the Guardian, and it was the largest of the 12 patrol boats defending the colony. Vecthar expected Walsh to call for evacuation and retreat. Instead, she did something that confused him. She ordered the civilian ships to leave the planet, yes, but then she gave another order. Attack. Her 12 tiny ships charged at the Krath fleet. Vecthar checked his instruments. Surely he had misunderstood. But no, the humans were actually attacking. This made no sense. They could not win. They would all die. What was the point? He watched as the human patrol boats darted between the larger Krath warships. They fired their weapons at full power, but they were like insects biting a bear. The Krath ships barely noticed. One by one, the human boats started taking damage. Their shields failed. Their hulls cracked open to the vacuum of space. But they kept fighting. Walsh moved her ship in patterns Vecthar had never seen before. She used the debris from destroyed vessels to hide her position. She led Krath ships into traps where other human boats could hit them from behind. She was not fighting to win. She was fighting to delay the enemy. Every minute her ship survived was another minute for the civilians below to escape. Vecthar began to understand. This was a sacrifice. Walsh and her crews knew they would die. They accepted it. They chose it. So others could live. This disturbed Vecthar deeply. Sacrifice for leaders made sense. Sacrifice for genetic kin made sense. But these humans were dying for random colonists. People they might not even know. There was no logical reason for it. After 4 hours of battle, only Walsh's ship remained. The Guardian was burning. Half her crew was dead. Her weapons were almost empty. The Krath commander sent her a message. Surrender now and you will be treated well. Keep fighting and you will be destroyed. Walsh sent back a message that Vecthar recorded. Her voice was calm, almost peaceful. You just made a terrible mistake, she said. You think this is over. You think you won. But you have no idea what you have started. Then she did something that made Vecthar's blood run cold. She aimed her dying ship directly at the Krath command vessel and pushed her engines to maximum speed. The Krath tried to shoot her down, but she was too close, too fast. The Guardian smashed into the command ship at incredible speed. Both ships exploded in a ball of fire that lit up the night sky of New Haven below. Vecthar sat in his observation ship, staring at the empty space where 2 vessels had been. He had just watched a commander deliberately kill herself to take one enemy ship with her. The math made no sense. 1 ship for 1 ship was not a good trade when the enemy had 300, but Walsh had not been thinking about math. The Krath fleet regrouped. Their second-in-command took control. They had won, technically. All human defenders were dead. The planet was defenseless. They began moving toward New Haven to land their troops and claim their prize. Then 3 new ships appeared at the edge of the system. Human ships. They were destroyers. Bigger than the patrol boats, but still small compared to Krath warships. They broadcast a message on all frequencies. The voice belonged to Captain Andrew Blake, commander of the lead destroyer. This is humanity's answer, Blake said. His voice was hard as stone. You killed our people. You attacked civilians. You started this war. Now you will face the consequences. Leave this system immediately, or we will send you to join your command ship in the dark. The Krath commander, a warlord named Thex, laughed when he heard this message. He had nearly 300 ships. The humans had three. This Blake was either insane or stupid. Probably both. Thex sent his own message back. You are outnumbered 100 to 1. Surrender or be destroyed. Blake's response came immediately. We don't surrender. We don't retreat. And we don't forgive. Last chance. Leave now. Thex ordered his fleet to attack. What happened next would be discussed across the galaxy for generations. Blake's 3 ships moved like nothing Vecthar had ever seen. They did not fight carefully. They fought like wild animals, all fury and rage. They dove into the Krath formation, their weapons blazing. When one ship ran out of missiles, it rammed a Krath vessel. When another ship lost its shields, it used its damaged hull as a weapon, smashing into enemy ships. The humans broadcast music during the battle. Loud, aggressive music with heavy drums and screaming guitars. Somehow it interfered with Krath communications. The Krath fleet fell into confusion. One of Blake's destroyers took critical damage. Instead of retreating, the captain did something unthinkable. He set his ship's reactor to overload and flew directly into the center of the Krath formation. The explosion destroyed 37 enemy ships in an instant. Vecthar's hands shook as he recorded everything. This was not war as he knew it. This was something else. Something primal and terrifying. By the end of the battle, all 3 human ships were destroyed, but they had taken 112 Krath vessels with them. Vecthar looked at his data and realized something that frightened him to his core. The humans had lost every ship. Every single person on those vessels had died, but they had won. They had saved New Haven. They had made the Krath retreat. And they had sent a message that would echo across the stars. Humanity had gone to war. The Krath forward base in the Helix Nebula was massive. It had been built over 20 years to serve as a staging point for their conquests. 50 orbital defense platforms surrounded it. Each platform had enough firepower to destroy a dozen ships. Minefields floated in carefully arranged patterns, ready to tear apart anything that came close. 600 Krath warships patrolled the area. It was supposed to be impregnable. The Krath believed no force in the galaxy could touch it. Admiral Hayes looked at the tactical display showing the base and smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. They put all their strength in one place. They think numbers will protect them. Let us teach them otherwise. The human fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the nebula. Immediately, alarms screamed on every Krath ship. 600 warships moved to intercept positions. The defense platforms powered up their weapons. The Krath commander, General Morketh, sent a broadcast to the human fleet. You are outnumbered 3 to 1. Retreat now and you may survive. Continue this foolish attack and you will all die here. Hayes broadcast her reply on all frequencies, ensuring every ship in the system could hear. General Morketh, you attacked our colony. You murdered our civilians. You thought we would accept this and move on. You were wrong. Today you learn what happens when you anger humanity. Today you learn the price of your crimes. Then she gave the order that would shock the galaxy. All ships, full attack. No holding back. No retreat. We end this now. The human fleet surged forward as one. Vecthar watched from his observation ship, his instruments recording everything. The humans were not following any standard military doctrine. They were not using formations designed to minimize losses. They were not protecting their flanks or maintaining supply lines. They were simply charging straight at the enemy like an ancient cavalry charge. It should have been suicide. The minefields activated first. Hundreds of explosive devices detected the approaching human ships and detonated. 3 human vessels vanished in the first wave of explosions. The Krath crews cheered, thinking the mines would destroy the entire fleet. They did not understand what they were seeing. The human ships that hit the mines were not unlucky. They were volunteers. They had deliberately flown into the minefields to clear paths for the ships behind them. Their sacrifice created corridors through the deadly obstacles. The rest of the fleet poured through these corridors, protected by the deaths of their companions. Vecthar felt sick watching it. No species did this. No military sacrificed their own people so casually. But the humans were not being casual. They were being precise. Every death served a purpose. Every sacrifice brought an advantage. The defense platforms opened fire next. Massive energy beams lanced out, designed to cut through the heaviest armor. They hit human ships and punched straight through. 5 more human vessels died in seconds. But while the platforms were busy destroying those 5 ships, 30 other human vessels reached firing range. They launched every missile they had. Hundreds of warheads streaked toward the platforms. The Krath point defense systems shot down many of them, but not all. Explosions rippled across the platform network. 3 platforms were destroyed completely. 7 more were damaged. General Morkath watched in disbelief. The human attack was working. It should not have worked. The cost was terrible, yes. The humans were losing ships at an alarming rate. But they were gaining ground. They were breaking through defenses that should have stopped them cold. All ships engage the enemy, Morkath ordered. Show these humans the price of their arrogance. The Krath fleet moved forward to meet the humans. 600 warships against less than 200 now. The numbers still favored the Krath heavily, but numbers only mattered if you could use them. Paul Martinez, the former freighter pilot, was coordinating the human attack from the Retribution. He had studied the Krath formation and found its weakness. The Krath ships were arranged in a standard defensive pattern, designed to provide overlapping fields of fire. It was a good formation. Against any normal enemy it would have been devastating. But Martinez was not a normal tactician. All ships execute pattern Delta, he ordered. Hit them on the edges. Make them turn. Make them move. The human fleet split into groups of 5 or 6 ships. Each group targeted a different section of the Krath formation. They did not try to fight fair. They attacked wounded ships. They gang up on isolated vessels. They forced the Krath to respond in multiple directions at once. The neat Krath formation began to break apart. Captain Susan Baker commanded the destroyer Vengeance. She led her group straight at a cluster of Krath heavy cruisers. Her ship was faster than the enemy vessels but had less armor. She used her speed to dart in close, fire her weapons, and retreat before the Krath could respond effectively. But one Krath captain was smart. He predicted Baker's pattern and positioned his ship to catch her on her next attack run. When the Vengeance came in, the Krath heavy cruiser was waiting. Its weapons hit Baker's ship hard. The destroyer's shields collapsed. Hull breaches opened across 3 decks. The engine room took damage. Vengeance is crippled, Martinez reported to Hayes. She is dead in the water. Hayes did not hesitate. All nearby ships protect Baker. Get her engines back online. 5 human ships immediately broke off their attacks and moved to surround the Vengeance. They positioned themselves between Baker's crippled destroyer and the Krath ships trying to finish her off. The Krath poured fire into these 5 ships. Their shields began to fail. Armor melted under the energy weapons. Hulls cracked, but they held position. Inside the Vengeance, Baker's crew worked frantically to repair the damaged engines. The chief engineer, a man named Danny Cole, crawled through burning corridors to reach the engine room. Half his team was dead. The other half was injured. But they kept working. Come on, Cole muttered, his hands flying over damaged systems. Just give me enough power to move. Just enough. Outside, one of the protecting ships exploded. Then another. The 3 remaining vessels held firm, even as their own destruction approached. Their crews knew what they were doing. They were buying time with their lives. Cole got the engines running. Not at full power, but enough. "Captain, we have thrust!" he shouted into his communicator. "All ships reform on me," Baker ordered immediately. "Attack pattern, Charlie. Let us return the favor." The Vengeance and her 5 defenders, now down to 3, turned as one unit. They had taken a beating. They were damaged and low on ammunition, but they were still in the fight. They charged back at the Krath ships that had nearly destroyed them. The attack was fierce and focused. 6 ships working together perfectly, covering each other's weaknesses, amplifying each other's strengths. The Krath heavy cruiser that had crippled the Vengeance exploded under their combined fire. 2 more Krath ships followed it into destruction. Vekthar watched this small battle within the larger battle and finally understood what he was seeing. The humans were not fighting as individuals. They were fighting as one organism. Each ship was like a cell in a body, willing to die so the body could live. They protected each other with absolute commitment. They sacrificed for each other without hesitation. This was not military tactics. This was something deeper. This was tribe. This was family. This was the ancient human instinct that had kept their species alive since the beginning. The Krath had numbers and weapons and training. But the humans had something more powerful. They had each other and they refused to let each other die alone. The battle raged for 8 more hours. The Helix Nebula filled with debris and radiation. Ships died by the dozens. The human fleet lost more than half its number. But slowly, inevitably, the Krath position collapsed. The defense platforms were destroyed. The minefields were cleared. The Krath ships were scattered and disorganized. General Morketh tried to rally his forces, but his commanders were panicking. They had never seen an enemy fight like this. They did not know how to respond. When the Retribution and 30 remaining human ships broke through to the Krath base itself, Morketh finally accepted the truth. He had lost. The impregnable fortress had fallen. All Krath ships retreat, he ordered. Fall back to the secondary base. We will regroup there. The Krath fleet began to withdraw. The humans did not pursue. They did not have enough ships left for a chase. They had won the battle, but the cost had been severe. Admiral Hayes stood on the bridge of the Retribution, looking at the casualty reports. 143 ships had entered the battle. 47 remained operational. Thousands of humans were dead. The survivors were wounded, exhausted, and low on supplies, but they had won. Vekthar sent his report to the Galactic Council. He tried to find words to describe what he had witnessed. In the end, he wrote simply, "The humans won. I do not know how. I do not understand their methods, but they won, and I believe they will keep winning no matter the cost." The Council's response came quickly. "Impossible. Send detailed tactical analysis. We need to understand their strategy." Vekthar looked at that request for a long time. Then he wrote back, "They have no strategy. They have only will, and I am beginning to understand that will is more powerful than any weapon." 3 weeks had passed since the Battle of Helix Nebula. The war was spreading across the entire sector. Everywhere the Krath had territory, human ships appeared to challenge them. The Krath still had more ships, more resources, more soldiers. But they were losing. Vekthar could not explain it in his reports. The Galactic Council kept asking for data, for analysis, for explanations. How were the humans winning? What secret weapon did they have? What tactical advantage were they exploiting? They saw truth was simpler and more terrible than any of them wanted to accept. The humans were winning because they refused to lose. Every defeat made them more determined. Every casualty made them fight harder. It defied all logic, but Vekthar had watched it happen too many times to doubt it. He interviewed survivors from both sides, trying to understand. The Krath soldiers he spoke with were confused and frightened. They had been trained to believe in their superiority. They had conquered dozens of species. But the humans were different. "They do not fear death," one Krath officer told Vekthar. His name was Veltok, and he had escaped a human attack on a supply depot. "We killed hundreds of them, but for every human that fell, 2 more took their place. They came at us like waves against rocks. Eventually, the rocks break. You outnumbered them. You had better positions. How did you lose?" Veltok looked down at his hands. "Because they did not care about surviving. They only cared about winning. When we destroyed their ships, they rammed us with the debris. When they ran out of ammunition, they used their ships as weapons. One human captain flew her crippled vessel straight into our command center. She died, yes, but she took 300 of our soldiers with her." Vekthar recorded these interviews and sent them to the council. The response was always the same. The humans must be using some drug or technology to suppress their survival instincts. No species could naturally be so self-destructive. But Vekthar knew better. He had spent too much time with the humans. He had talked to them, listened to them, watched them. They were not suppressing their survival instincts. They were channeling them into something larger. They survived by ensuring their companions survived. They lived through their willingness to die for each other. Admiral Hayes agreed to another interview with Vekthar. She looked older than she had 3 weeks ago. The war was aging her rapidly, but her eyes were still hard, still determined. "Your species has suffered terrible losses," Vekthar said. "You have lost more than half your fleet. Tens of thousands of humans are dead, yet you continue to attack. Why?" Hayes was quiet for a moment. She poured herself coffee from a battered pot and offered some to Vekthar. He declined. She shrugged and took a sip, then spoke. "Commander, let me tell you about Greg Turner. He is my second in command. Before the war, he was a teacher. He had a family. The Krath killed them at New Haven." She paused. "Every morning, Greg wakes up and looks at a picture of his wife and daughters. Then he goes to work planning how to kill more Krath. Do you know what he told me last week? What did he say? He said, 'Admiral, I cannot bring my family back. But I can make sure the Krath never do this to anyone else's family.' That is why we fight, Commander. Not for territory, not for resources. We fight so this never happens again." "But the cost," Vekthar said. "Your species is bleeding itself dry." Hayes nodded slowly. "Yes, we are paying a terrible price. Every casualty report breaks my heart. Every ship we lose takes friends with it. But you know what would cost us more? Stopping. Giving up. Letting the Krath get away with what they did." She leaned forward. "We are not fighting because we want to. We are fighting because we must. And we will pay whatever price is necessary." The next major battle came at Crimson Reach, an asteroid field the Krath had fortified heavily. They had learned from Helix Nebula. This time they were ready for human tactics. They had built overlapping defense networks. They had positioned their ships to support each other. They had prepared for a long siege. Admiral Hayes arrived with what remained of her fleet. 47 ships, all damaged, all low on supplies. Against them, the Krath had assembled 800 vessels, fresh and well supplied. The Krath commander sent a message. "Admiral Hayes, we know your name now. We respect your courage. But this is where your war ends. Surrender, and your crews will be treated well. Continue fighting, and we will destroy you all." Hayes broadcast her reply. "We do not surrender. We do not retreat. And we will not stop until you pay for what you did at New Haven. This is your last chance. Withdraw from this system, and we will let you go. Stay, and you will learn why humans do not forget." The Krath commander laughed. The humans had 47 ships. He had 800. The outcome was obvious. The battle began at dawn, as measured by the nearby star. The human ships did not advance cautiously. They did not probe for weaknesses. They simply charged straight at the asteroid fortress. The Krath minefields claimed 5 human ships immediately. The defense platforms destroyed 6 more. The Krath fleet moved to engage, confident in their overwhelming numbers. Then Paul Martinez did something brilliant. He had studied the asteroid field for 3 days before the battle. He knew every rock, every gravitational eddy, every radiation pocket. He had found a route through the field that no computer would recommend because it was too dangerous. Ships could crash, navigation could fail. It was a terrible risk. Martinez took it. "All ships follow my lead," he broadcast. "Stay in formation. Trust your pilots. Do not deviate from the path." The human fleet dove into the asteroid field following, a route that twisted and turned between massive rocks. The Krath tried to follow, but their ships were larger and less maneuverable. 3 Krath vessels smashed into asteroids and exploded. 7 more took damage and had to withdraw. The human ships emerged from the asteroid field right in the middle of the Krath formation. The Krath ships suddenly found themselves surrounded by human vessels at point-blank range. What followed was chaos. The Krath could not use their numerical advantage because their own ships were in the way. They could not fire without risking hitting their companions. The humans had no such problem. They knew exactly where their friends were, and they fired with precision. Captain Susan Baker, her ship repaired but still scarred from the last battle, led her group straight at a Krath carrier. The carrier was massive, 10 times the size of her destroyer. It should have swatted her aside easily, but Baker was not alone. 5 other human ships moved with her in perfect coordination. They hit the carrier from 6 different angles at once, overwhelming its shields. The carrier tried to bring its weapons to bear, but the human ships were too close, too fast. The carrier exploded, taking 2 Krath escorts with it. All across the battlefield, the same scene repeated. Small groups of human ships working together, supporting each other, protecting each other. The Krath had more ships, but the humans fought as if they shared one mind. Greg Turner, watching from the Retribution, saw the pattern clearly. They are learning to fear us, he said quietly to Hayes. Good, Hayes replied. Fear will make them careful. Careful enemies make mistakes. The battle lasted 6 hours. When it ended, the humans had lost 18 more ships. 29 remained operational, but the Krath fortress was destroyed. More than 300 Krath ships were gone. The survivors retreated in disarray. Vecthar watched the aftermath and tried to process what he had seen. The humans had been outnumbered almost 20-1. They had won anyway. The math said it was impossible. But math did not account for courage, for determination, for the human refusal to abandon their own. That night, Vecthar found Greg Turner in the Retribution's small memorial room. The walls were covered with pictures of the dead. Thousands of faces looking out from photographs. Turner stood before a picture of a woman and 2 young girls. Your family? Vecthar asked quietly. Turner nodded. My wife, Mary. My daughters, Lisa and Kate. Lisa was 7. Kate was 10. His voice was steady, but his eyes were wet. They were going to visit Mary's parents for 2 weeks, just a vacation. Then the Krath came. I am sorry. Everyone is sorry, Turner said. But sorry does not bring them back. Action brings justice. Every Krath ship we destroy is one less ship that can attack someone's family. Every battle we win is a message to the galaxy. You cannot attack humans without consequences. But the cost to your people is so high. Turner turned to look at Vecthar. Yes. But you know what would cost more? Doing nothing. Being afraid. Letting evil win because fighting is hard. He looked back at the picture of his family. Mary used to say that good people have a responsibility to stand against bad people, even if it is difficult, even if it is dangerous. I did not understand what she meant when we were safe. Now I do. Vecthar left Turner alone with his memories and returned to his observation ship. He wrote his report, trying to find words adequate to describe what humanity had become. In the end, he wrote, "The humans are not fighting a war. They are pursuing justice. There is a difference. Wars end when one side loses too much and surrenders. Justice does not end until the guilty are punished. The Krath will lose this war because they are fighting an enemy that will never stop, never surrender, and never forgive. I fear for what this will do to humanity, but I fear more for any species foolish enough to anger them." 3 months after the attack on New Haven, the war came to the Krath homeworld. Admiral Hayes stood on the bridge of the Retribution and looked at the planet on her screen. It was a beautiful world with blue oceans and green continents. Billions of Krath lived there, most of them civilians who had nothing to do with the attack on New Haven. Hayes felt no joy at the sight. She felt only tired determination. This needed to end. The human fleet had shrunk to 29 ships, 29 vessels out of the 207 that had started the war. Every ship was damaged. Every crew was exhausted. They had fought 23 major battles and countless smaller engagements. They had won every single one, but the victories had cost them dearly. Greg Turner stood beside Hayes looking at the same display. "This is it," he said quietly. "The last battle." "Yes," Hayes agreed. "Win or lose, this ends today." The Krath had assembled their remaining fleet to defend their homeworld. Nearly 400 ships orbited the planet, ready to fight to the death. They had called in forces from across their territory. This was their final stand. Warlord Thex, who had ordered the attack on New Haven, commanded the defense. He broadcast a message to the human fleet. For the first time, Vecthar heard fear in a Krath voice. "Admiral Hayes, we can negotiate. We can find peace. There has been enough death on both sides. Let us end this before more lives are lost." Hayes's response was cold. "You had a chance for peace. You had a chance for negotiation. That was 3 months ago before you murdered civilians. Now there is only justice. Surrender completely and we will spare your crews. Fight and we will destroy you. You have only 29 ships. We have 400. You cannot win. We have won every battle. We will win this one too. Not because we have more ships. Not because we have better weapons. We will win because we have something you will never understand. We have each other and we will die before we abandon our own." Hayes paused. "Last chance, Thex. surrender or face the consequences. Thex's pride would not allow surrender. He ordered his fleet to attack. Paul Martinez had one more trick to play. He had been studying the Krath defensive formation for hours, looking for any weakness. He found it in an unexpected place. The Krath had positioned their strongest ships at the front, protecting the weaker vessels behind them. It was standard defensive doctrine, but it had a flaw. "Admiral, I have a plan," Martinez said, "but it requires 5 ships to make a suicide run straight into their formation. They will not survive." Hayes looked at him. "Will it work?" "If they can get through, yes. They will disrupt the formation enough for the rest of us to exploit, but those 5 ships will be destroyed, guaranteed." Hayes nodded slowly. She opened the fleet channel. "I need 5 volunteers for a high-risk mission. You will not survive, but you will give us the chance to win." "Who will go?" Every single ship volunteered. Hayes chose 5 captains who had lost family at New Haven. They deserved the chance to strike back directly. Captain Susan Baker was among them. Her destroyer Vengeance had survived every battle, but she knew its luck was running out. "It has been an honor, Admiral," Baker said over the communications channel. "The honor is mine, Captain. All of you. Give them hell." The 5 ships accelerated to maximum speed straight at the Krath fleet. The Krath opened fire with everything they had. Energy beams and missiles filled space. The first human ship died within 30 seconds, then the second, then the third. But the remaining 2 kept going. Susan Baker pushed her ship's engines past their safety limits. She could feel the Vengeance shaking apart around her. "Come on," she whispered. Just a little further. The 4th ship exploded just ahead of her. Now only the Vengeance remained, racing toward the Krath formation with every weapon on both sides firing at her. Her shields failed. Her armor melted. Holes appeared in her hull. She made it. The Vengeance smashed into a Krath battleship at incredible speed. Both ships exploded in a fireball that engulfed a dozen other Krath vessels. The explosion created a gap in the defensive line, exactly as Martinez had predicted. "All ships attack through the gap," Hayes ordered. "For Susan, for everyone we have lost, and this." The remaining 24 human ships poured through the opening. The Krath formation collapsed into chaos. Ships collided with each other trying to respond. Communications broke down. Discipline fell apart. The humans showed no mercy. They had come too far and lost too much to stop now. They hit the Krath with everything they had, fighting with the fury of the righteous and the desperation of the nearly defeated. Greg Turner coordinated the attack, his voice calm despite the chaos. "Group Alpha, hit the carrier on the left. Group Beta, take out those cruisers. All groups watch your spacing. Protect each other." The battle raged for hours. The Krath fought hard, but they were fighting for their leaders and their empire. The humans were fighting for the dead and for justice. There is a difference, and that difference decided the battle. One by one, the Krath ships fell. Their defensive positions crumbled. Their formations broke. Their will to fight eroded with each passing minute. When only 100 Krath ships remained, Warlord Thex tried to rally them for a final stand. But before he could finish his speech, 3 human destroyers targeted his flagship. They hit it from 3 angles at once, overwhelming its defenses. The flagship exploded, taking Thex with it. The remaining Krath ships stopped fighting. Without Thex, without leadership, without hope, they surrendered. Admiral Hayes stood on the bridge of the Retribution, breathing hard. Her ship was barely functional. Fires burned on 3 decks. The shields were gone. The weapons were empty. But they had won. "All ships cease fire," she ordered. "Accept their surrender. It is over." The human fleet stopped shooting. 24 ships remained, all damaged, all barely operational. They had started with 207. 183 ships were gone. More than 70,000 humans had died in 3 months of warfare, but they had won. Vecthar came aboard the Retribution as the surrender was being formalized. He found Hayes in the memorial room adding new pictures to the wall. Susan Baker's face now hung among thousands of others. "You won," Vecthar said. "Yes," Hayes replied without looking at him. "We won, and it cost us everything." "Not everything. You are alive. Your species survived." Hayes finally turned to face him. "Did we? Look at these faces, Commander. Look at what we lost. We came into this war as diplomats and traitors. We ended it as killers. We discovered that when pushed, when threatened, We are capable of terrible things. That knowledge does not go away. You had no choice. The Krath attacked first, I know, but that does not make it easier. Hayes looked back at the pictures. I need you to do something for me, Commander. I need you to tell the galaxy what happened here. Not just the battles. Not just the tactics. I need you to tell them why. Why you fought. Why we won. We did not win because we were stronger or smarter. We won because we refused to abandon each other. Every human out there knew that if they fell, their companions would protect them. If they died, their sacrifice would mean something. That certainty gave us power beyond any weapon. Hayes walked to the viewport and looked out at the Krath homeworld. Tell the galaxy that humans want peace. We want to share our art and music and stories. We want friends among the stars. But tell them also that if they bring us war, they will face something they cannot prepare for. They will face humans who have decided that some things are worth dying for. Vecthar recorded everything. He wrote his final report, which would become known as the Vecthar Warning. It was distributed to every species in the Galactic Council. It was translated into 1,000 languages. It became required reading for every military academy in the galaxy. The final paragraph read, I believed I understood war, having studied it for 3 centuries. Then I watched humanity unleashed and I realized I had only ever seen war's shadow. True war is not fought by soldiers following orders. It is fought by ordinary beings who decide that something matters more than their own survival. Humanity has mastered this truth. They fight not for conquest or glory. They fight for each other. This makes them unconquerable. This makes them terrifying. This, above all else, makes them the one species you should never provoke. The Krath Dominion collapsed within a year. Their conquered territories were freed. No species attacked human colonies again. Word spread across the galaxy. The humans were peaceful, friendly, creative. But they were also dangerous beyond measure when provoked. Admiral Linda Hayes retired from the military. She returned to Earth and spent the rest of her life tending a garden at a memorial park. Every day she walked among trees planted for the dead. Every evening she sat before a wall with 73,000 names carved into stone. Greg Turner went back to teaching. He told his students about the war, about the sacrifices made, about the friends he had lost. He taught them that peace was precious because war was terrible. He taught them that sometimes good people must fight, not because they want to, but because evil must be stopped. Paul Martinez returned to flying freighters. But now, when he hauled cargo between the stars, he looked out at space differently. He remembered the battles. He remembered the ships that died protecting his own. He carried those memories like sacred things. The human species changed after the war.